Welcome to Esoteric Thoughts. Today I'm joined by Micah Dank and we have a special guest, Garrick King. How are you, Garrick?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Garrick, can you start by telling us who is Garrick King?
Well, Garrick King is just a regular average person, just like everybody else. By day, I'm a marketing assistant, and by night, I don't know exactly what you would call me. I'm kind of a code breaker, I guess, but it's more of my own code that I found that I'm breaking, or a code that's already existed that I've just come across that I'm breaking into and decoding tons and tons of information revolved around the numbers 1111 and 333. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, I'm just just your average Joe.
And can you start by telling us how you got into this?
Yeah, basically it started with me waking up at 3:33 in the morning. Um, this was something that, it happened. I didn't think anything about it. The number meant nothing to me. Just woke up, looked at the clock, and that was the time. The next night, it happened again, and I thought it was a little odd, but again, didn't put too much thought into it until it started happening the third night, the fourth night, the fifth night, and I thought, okay, this is weird. Something's going on in the house that's waking me up. There's got to be something going on. Neighbors starting their car in the middle of the night or whatever, going to work or coming home. Maybe the ice maker was dumping ice in the ice machine. There just had to be something that was waking me up. So one night I set my alarm for 3:15, woke up, stayed awake, watched the clock as it came to 3:33 or 3:33 in the morning. Nothing. The house was dead silent. So I was like, okay, that's odd. Well, it just continued. It continued all the way from January until November, and it was every single night. And I understand how unbelievable that sounds, but it's exactly what happened. It wouldn't even matter if I wasn't at my house, if I was at my folks' house, if I was at um my husband's house, but he was my boyfriend at the time. If I was at his house, I'd still wake up at that time. It didn't matter. So it stopped in November. It stopped on this one particular night when I had a dream that my father came to visit me. He passed away 2 years prior to that. And in my dream, he was coming out of the closet, and I saw him as clearly as I'm sitting here looking at this lamp. And I said to him in my dream, "What are you doing here?" Because I was just shocked that he was even there in the first place. And before he could answer, I woke up. It was 7:15 in the morning. So I'd actually slept through the entire night. And from that moment forward, I never woke up at that time ever again. Now, fast forward several years, my husband and I got married, and I legally changed my name to his last name because no one told me that if I just signed my name as Garrick King on my marriage certificate, it would have done it automatically. But I had to go through the court system of doing it. And several days after that happened, my husband went to bed one night pretty early. I stayed up doing some writing, and then a little time passed. I decided it was time to go to bed. So I, went upstairs, got my Kindle, was doing a little bit of reading for about 15, 20 minutes. Um, was getting tired, put the Kindle away, closed my eyes. And I mean, it was just a matter of seconds. I had no time to literally fall asleep. But within a matter of seconds, this blinding, bright white light was, it was like someone had wheeled in a spotlight and laid it next to our bed and turned it on right in front of my face. That's what it was like. But it was coming through my eyelids. My eyes weren't open. And instead of opening my eyes to see where this light was coming from, I literally laid there trying to rationalize where it might be coming from. And I mean, I went through everything. Like, could it be a car from outside? But we were on the second floor, so that was impossible. I thought maybe someone had broken in. They were shining a flashlight in my face. But then I thought, well, why aren't the dogs reacting? And so finally, I decided to open my eyes. And when I did, it was just like a light going off. The room was pitch black. Can't explain it. Have no idea what it was. But when I looked over at the time, it was 11:11. Again, I didn't think anything about this number. It meant nothing to me. The next day, I'm at work talking to a coworker about it. She said something about, it could be someone trying to come visit me, which made me think of my dad. And I go to my cubicle, start working. Several hours pass. I get hungry. I look at the time to see if it's close to lunch, and the time was 11:11. And I thought to myself, I hope this crap's not starting again with seeing these repeating numbers. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong, because from that moment forward, I just started seeing this number everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I'd look at the clock. It would be that time. I'd be on the highway. A truck passed me one time, and it had this huge string of numbers down the side of the trailer. And right in the middle of it was 11:11. And it just like stood out to me like someone had highlighted it, even though it wasn't highlighted. It just like my eyes were drawn to that portion. And it just started showing up so much that I began to question and dig and try to find if there was any sort of connection. Went to the internet, did some research, and there's all these websites talking about the number, that it's a communication from the universe, it's a communication from your guardian angels, and just all this different conflicting stories about what it means when you see this number. But as I started diving into it, I started finding these odd connections. So after I legally changed my name to Garrick King, my name became 11 letters long. And my first name ends in K, last name begins with K. K is the 11th letter of the alphabet. So literally encoded in my name is 1111. Then I started thinking, okay, well, I was born September 2nd. September 2nd, 9 and 2 is 11. And September 2nd is the 245th day of the year. And 2 plus 4 plus 5 is 11. So there's all these different 11 connections. And I sort of became obsessed with looking at numbers. So I started looking at our address, the address that we lived at the time. When you added all of the numbers together and reduced them down, it reduced to, I think it was 38. Well, 3 and 8 is 11. And then our next address where we moved to, it did the exact same thing. It was reduced to 47, and 4 and 7 is 11. It just kept coming up all the freaking time. And there was one instance where I received an email from Old Navy, who I had not shopped with in years. I don't even know how they got my email address. And the subject of the email was, it's 11:11. And I thought, well, that's odd. It didn't come on November 11th. It wasn't sent to me at 11:11. There was no indication in the email why the subject line even said that. And so I sent it to a coworker of mine who I've been talking to about this. And she, got the text, and she's like, oh, that's weird. And as I was looking at my phone, I said, whoa, what's even weirder is look at the time I sent it to you. I wasn't paying any attention, but I sent it to her at 11:11. Not only that, my phone showed that it was the 11 of 11 attachments that I had sent her over a period of time. And then at that point, she was like, okay, I think you need to see an exorcist. I was like, well, I don't think I'm possessed. I'm seeing this number for whatever reason over and over. So in 2021, I had this one day where I was working. I worked from home, but I just was seeing 11:11 all over the place. It was on a receipt that I purchased. It was in a spreadsheet that I was working on for work. The number of contacts in the spreadsheet was 1111 or 1111. The actual size of the file was like 11.11 kilobytes, or that's how it showed up on my computer. And I was like, what is going on here? This is just too freaking odd. But it was like 5 or 6 times in this one single day. And I started thinking, okay, is there a connection, some sort of connection between this number and 333? No sooner than I had the thought, and I have to stress this, I was not hearing voices. I've never heard voices in my head, but it was like a thought was being transmitted to me or something somehow. And the thought was multiply 1111 and 333. So I did. The number that you get is 369963. That number stood out to me because of Nikola Tesla. He's quoted as saying, if you only understood the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would hold a key to the universe. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. But it didn't make any sense. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? So another thought pops into my head. That thought was now take 1111 and add it to that number. I did. First number you get is 371074. Again, meant nothing to me. It's like these numbers are growing, but they had no meaning. So it went a couple of days. I was looking at this number and I'm like, man, I just can't figure this out. What does it mean? And then another thought came into my head. That thought was add 369963 to that number and then every new number that you get. So that's what I did. I may have went a little crazy with it because I took it all the way up into the 100 billions. But what I discovered, if I go ahead and share my screen, I can show you. Let's go ahead and share this. Let me know when you can see it. Okay. So as you can see, we have 333, 1111. We get 369963. And if I need to zoom this in, I can. And so this is where I added 1111 to that, got the first number, 371074. I moved it over and then added 369963, just like the thoughts were telling me. Get the next number. Now, what's interesting about this second number is it's almost a reverse of the first number. First number starts with 37. The second one ends in 37. We have 10 in the middle. The first one ends in 74, and the second one begins with 74. As I continued this process, I got to this third number, and this one really stood out to me, obviously, because the next number is 1111000. So I immediately solved the 1111. I continued the process. As I'm looking at these numbers, I begin to realize there's many different things happening here. So the first portion is these first two end in 47, and I was 47 years old when this all started happening, or when these thoughts started coming to me. But the other odd thing is the first portion of the numbers are going up by 37, and the last portion, when I say the last portion, I'm talking about the last 4 digits, and this will make sense here in just a second. They're going down by the number 37. So you can see we have 1074, it goes to 1037, and then 1000,963, which 369 backwards, but they're going down, and the first portion, they're going up. So 37, 74, 111, 148. So it's a sequence of going up and down by the number 37. But I noticed there was another pattern taking place here, which it starts with 47, then we hit 0, and then it goes 3, 6, 9, 2, 5, 8, 1, 4, 7, 0, and then it repeats. 3, 6, 9, 2, 5, 8, 1, 4, 7, 0. And it does this. I'll scroll through here just a little ways. But you can see it's continuing to do it. 3, 6, 9, 2, 5, 8, 1, 4, 7, 0, and it just keeps repeating. And like I said, I've taken this all the way up to, well, it's up to the 2 billions now, but the whole thing, it just repeats. It just keeps repeating. But one of the things that I learned just from trying to figure this out, looking at these numbers, is when you take the last 4 digits and then add the remaining, you get 1111. So just to demonstrate, 1074 plus 37 is 1111. Happens right here. 1037 plus 74 will be 1111. When you take 1000, add 111 to it, you get 1111. Every single number does this. When you get up to the higher numbers, up into the 100 billion mark, you would take the last 4, the next 4, the next 4, and then whatever's remaining, add those together, it all comes back to 1111 every single time. So even when you look at some of these numbers here where we have a 0 in the middle, so 0630, well, 0 doesn't calculate at the beginning of a number, so you only really have 630. So 630 plus 481, 1111. It happens every single time. So one of the things that I began to do, and this really, I mean, it unpacks so much, it's impossible to do all of this in an hour and a half. So there will be a lot of jumping around. But one of the things I started doing was looking at Gematria, however you want to say it. And I began to look at the numbers and I began to do a split because we know that the last 4 added to the remaining is what generates the 1111 number over and over. So I began taking the numbers and splitting them and then looking at gematrix.org, plugging these numbers in and seeing what kind of phrases were coming back. What kind of phrases actually equal the same value as these numbers? And I just started getting tons of things talking about the matrix, the Bible. For example, this one here, 1074. So the phrase, behold Jesus, has the value of 1074. Simulated reality, the name that equals Christ. Look up, it's God the Most High. A son declared by the math of God. Signs, the matrix is real. Reality is a hoax. All of these have the value of 1074. And of course, the first number was 37, which I couldn't find a phrase that had that small of a number. But there is a website called the 37 Jesus Code, where this man has gone through and found all of this decoding in the Bible around the number 37. And again, keep in mind that these numbers are going up and down by that same number, 37. So all of this really started unpacking a lot of stuff. One thing I want to kind of show here is this phrase right here where it says Bob is real. Out of nowhere, I received an email from someone, and all it said was a note from the universe. Now, this email came to my work address, and it was from someone named Bob. I have no idea who it was, but it was just a strange email, a note from the universe. And then to find this phrase, Bob is real. And then over here, 852, it asks the question, is it true Bob is real? And it seems to answer it over here. Yes, Bob is real. I have no idea who Bob is. It was just such a strange email, a strange statement to say, a note from the universe. So with all of these connections to the Bible, and with talking with Micah and him talking about the Bible code, that's when I started wanting to see how this might apply to the Bible. Now, what the Bible code does is it uses something called ELS, which is equal distant letter sequencing. And I did something with these same numbers, which I won't go into because it gets really in depth, but I did a same sort of equal distant letter or number skip, and it just unlocked this entirely different code and all this messaging coming through. So again, that just pushes me forward into looking at the Bible. So I got several different Bible code softwares. Keys to the Bible is one. Code Finder Millennium Edition was another one. But I've really been working with the keys to the Bible because it allows me to adjust the width of the Bible code matrix. Now, what I mean by that is this is the software. And you can, so literally right here is the beginning of the Hebrew Bible. And it's obviously reading from right to left. But you can change the width of this matrix. And so right now I have it set to 1074. So it ends on 1074, which is the first portion of the first number that was generated. I started going through this, and what I did was, and this was, again, was just a thought that came to me, was to take these numbers, split, adjust the width of the Bible code to these numbers, and then use a key of 11. So I would count over 11 and down 11. Get rid of that notice thing up there. Whoops. So let me jump back here real quick. Okay. So I counted over 11, down 11, selected that letter, marked it, and then went on. So then I went to 37, changed the width to 37, went over 11, counted down 11, marked that one. As I was doing this entire process, when I got to 370, something odd started happening. I noticed all of the letters began to line up in a row. And I thought, well, how is this possible? Because I'm using, all these different skips, 1074, 1037, 1000, 963, 926, and so on. And not only these, but the ones at the beginning too. And they began to line up. And it began to reveal this, again, another hidden code. And I think there's actually 3 hidden codes. There's the surface code, which is all the letters that I went through by going over 11 and down 11. And then there's 2 inner codes. The first one being this one at the skip of 370. And then there's going to be another one at the skip of 740. Because the same thing happens. They line up in a row. I'm very close. Mike has seen a portion of this already. I still have one final sentence to try to translate. It's starting to come together. But what this inner message at 370 says is extraordinary. I don't know what to make of it yet. And I can't wait to see what 740 says. But I can talk about the surface message if you want me to, and what it says when it's decoded. So let me pull that up here. Whoops. Okay. Whoop. People got a brief glimpse there of the inner code, but that's okay. So going through this, this whole entire message unfolded. And what it says is, this is a new approach, and that, as it should be, a new version of the book will be released. As my sons and daughters, I will save you. At the same time, I will be with you in the future. It will be clear that you will be able to see how the sun is shining, and the sun is shining. When the light shines in the light of my creation, a sign will be thrown here carrying a flame, and it will rise to its glory. And I am coming to the end of my life, and I am looking forward to seeing you again. This is why the children of God are living in the land of the Father. From the words of the Lord, they came from the fire to the truth of the sea. Now, just the simple fact that it says anything at all, I think is extraordinary. Because again, it's going through and using this method of choosing these letters. And it could have simply just said nothing at all. It could have just been a bunch of gobbledygook and nothing to it. But the fact that it comes out with these clear, structured sentences is extraordinary. And the inner message does the exact same thing with 370. And like I said, I have one final sentence to translate. but the message is just, I don't know what to make of it yet. It's very interesting. That's all I can really say. But through my work, one of the things that seems to keep coming up is this year 2058 and many, many, many references to some sort of event happening that same year that seems to be pointing towards a solar flare event. And what I am talking about, a possible reset of this simulated reality that we appear to be living in. Any questions?
Yeah, weren't you going to can you do that part where you take every other letter from the two columns and show that message?
Yep. You talk about where it talked about
Well, how if you do it, the message that it tells you that it's missing something.
Right. So when I first started doing this, yeah, that's just the translation there. So when I started putting the letters in, I didn't quite know how to read them. I had no idea. So I thought, okay, do I read going down? Am I to read coming up? But I noticed that these letters.
Can you make the screen a little bit bigger? Yes, great.
Yeah. So I started noticing how they were laid out. And if I come back over here, hopefully I still have this on the screen. Yeah. So as I began to read one direction, I got nothing but gobbledygook. But as I read it the other direction, I got this message coming through that says the string is missing 1111 and the salvation that you have. And I thought, what? Like literally, it's talking about the number 1111. And it's telling me that the string is missing 1111. What does that mean? And then the second line was, and this was without adding any spaces between the Hebrew letters at all. Like Google and another website called Do It in Hebrew literally translated this as it should be calibrated as it is read. And I was like, what? And it suddenly it seemed to click. So the string is missing 1111. Well, what does that mean? Well, what do you need from this number and this number to make it 1111? You have to combine them. You have to go from right to left. And that's how I started structuring these sentences, by reading these letters from right to left, bouncing back and forth all the way down. And this entire phrasing is what came out of this. Now, I put some notes in here that, was just kind of my own thoughts of what this could possibly mean. Now, what's really interesting is Google and this other website will translate this first sentence in two different ways. The first one is, this is a new approach, and that as it should be, a new version of the book will be released. The second one talks about AI, artificial intelligence. And I found that odd that it would look at that one sentence and translate it two different ways. But my notes just kind of talking about this sort of matrix, the simulated reality. I said a new version of the book could be referring to a new version of the code, the AI, which makes up the simulation that we are in. So this could be like a version 2.0, a 3.0, 4.0, et cetera, et cetera. When it says, as my sons and daughters, I will save you, this could be referring to the idea that we are a byproduct of this code. And I just put this as an example, but I said, you take 1 + 2, you get 3. So in this equation, the 3 is a byproduct or the son or daughter of 1 and 2. And it is removing the coding language and stating it in a manner in which we can better understand what it's trying to say. The latter portion, I will save you, might suggest that the code which makes up our genetics will be saved, reused, re-encoded, and re-entered into the matrix that makes up the simulation that we are in, which then directly ties into this next line that says, at the same time, I will be with you in the future, suggesting that the mainframe code will already be in place and will be discoverable in this new reality, this new future, just as this code is now. When it says it will be clear that you will be able to see how the sun is shining, and the sun is shining, by stating that we will be able to see how the sun is shining, could this be referencing that we will become aware of this code again? The code that is clearly stated in the surface level text of the Bible, the Jesus code, the sun, SON/SUN. And not only how, but why. When the light shines in the light of my creation, a sign will be thrown here carrying a flame, and it will rise to its glory. This appears to be directly talking about the reset through means of a solar flare event. A sign will be thrown here carrying a flame sounds just like a solar flare. And that it will rise to its glory suggests that it will be all-consuming, at least to what remains on the surface of the planet. The phrase, and I am coming to the end of my life, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Again, this seems to be referencing the reset, stating that this program, this time frame, this age, this artificial intelligence is coming to an end, and it's looking forward to all things returning to the source. When it says, this is why the children of God are living in the land of the Father, could this, and I don't know this, I'm just asking, putting these notes, asking these questions, could this mean that some will survive this cataclysm and that they will survive in the land, i.e. possibly going underground or possibly under the sea? For the next portion reads, from the words of the Lord, they came from the fire to the truth of the sea. And I just put, could this mean that these survivors have heeded the warning that is being revealed through this code and escaped from the fire, where it says they came from the fire to the safety of the sea, which would be the truth of the sea?
And just to jump in, is this in relation to the 2058 that you mentioned earlier?
Correct. Correct. Now, here's why I say this. So one of the things that I noticed with the number 369963 is any 4-digit number that you add to 369963 can be brought back to the 4-digit number that you originally started with. So 369963 plus, give me any 4-digit number.
1107.
1107. Okay. Okay, so we have 371071. So take 1070 plus 37, you get 1107. Happens every single time. Doesn't matter what 4-digit number it is. The other interesting thing is any 4-digit number that you add to 369963 will always start with 37. Doesn't matter what number it is. So if we took 369963, we add 9999, it'll always start with 37. So take 9962, add 37 to it, you'll have 9999.
So Garrick, what did you get to the point in the code where you were using the 2 columns and you went every other letter?
When did I get to that point?
No, I'm saying, are you going to get to that point?
Oh,
remember there were 2 columns and you were taking one letter and then the column from the left letter and then going up and then going up, and it revealed another.
That's what I was showing right here. Was these are the 2 columns.
Oh, gotcha.
Going all the way down. Yeah. And this is how it looks in the actual software. Now, the reason, just to jump back to this 2058 thing real quick, the reason I started researching 2058 is all of this started coming to me in 2020 2021. And I thought, okay, well, what number? So I took 369,963, added that current year, 2021. It gave me 371984. That number stood out to me because 1984, George Orwell's 1984, plus 1984 was 11 years after I was born. I was born in 1973. But adding 37 to 1984, you'll get 2021. So I thought, what number do I have to put in for this to actually get the current year? And it ended up being 2058. So I went to the internet, started researching. It's very difficult to research a year that hasn't happened yet. But I typed in 2058, came across this article called Apocalypse 2058. And it was written about this guy named Didier Sornay, and how he was talking about in 2058, some sort of event is going to happen. And I started researching him, found out that he worked at a place called the Credit Suisse Bank at one point. He was a board member. And as I began to research that, the telephone number for this place literally has the numbers 333-1111 in their phone number. And I thought, how odd is that? I mean, that's a crazy synchronistic thing going on. But then I also went to Google and started searching, like how many people live on the planet. And it said something like 7 billion people currently live on the planet. And as we continue to grow, the earth won't be able to sustain this many people, et cetera, et cetera. And the phrase Earth can't sustain 7 billion people has the same value in Gematria as 2058. So there's all these odd connections with that date. All these references to the sun, all of these references that I've been finding where the sun, S-O-N, is being referenced and connected to sun, S-U-N, which is what literally brought me to Micah's work. And I started going through and finding all of these connections, even with the zodiac showing up in this. I mean, this code just continued to unfold and unfold and unfold. And literally still to this day, I'm amazed by it. I can't quite explain it. It's there. Anybody can find this stuff. If they just take the time to do it, they will be able to find it. Exactly the same method that I went through. Anybody can watch any of my videos, walk through step by step, everything I did, and get the exact same result. So it's not like I'm going through and cherry picking certain things. I've been accused of doing that. I'm not. Math is math. It's always going to come out to a certain number. I'm not choosing these numbers. It's doing it on its own through this code. Now, you asked me to talk about Asherah, which I can pull up this presentation here. And let's just go ahead. Okay, so this code that I found, and you can see it on screen, this is the matrix where all of this information was found within a confined area of space within the Bible.
What were the parameters?
What was that? It was, well, let's just see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 17 across and probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 18 down. So it's a very small matrix.
Let me just jump in for 2 seconds. Eso,
Sure.
what you're looking at right here is a book that I've described to you before, and I've talked to Garrick about it. This was done 30 years ago by a guy named Michael Drosnin. He was a reporter. He met up with a rabbi named Eliyahu Rips, and they wrote the original Bible code books. Michael Drosnin has since passed since then. But what's interesting about Garrick's work is that he has 30 years of technology on these people. So the software that he uses and what he uses to decode things is much brighter than anything. So, for example, in the original Bible code books, you'll see like a 50 by 50 box, and you'll find equidistant letter patterns. And it'll say like George Bush, and then it'll say like 9/11, and then it'll say tower. And then it'll just have a couple of these little words, but it is nowhere near as intricate as what Garrick is doing. So I just wanted to throw that out there for people who want an introduction to this kind of stuff, to pick up the book series. It's called Bible Code by Michael Drosnin. I think there's 3 of them.
Yeah, there is 3. There is 3. Now, this particular matrix that you're looking at was built off of Michael Drosnin's matrix that he found, where I think it's in I want to say it's the 2nd book. He found a portion where it talks about our DNA and that it was brought here in a vehicle. So I wanted to see what else is around this code. And I just went through and started popping in these Hebrew letters and seeing what would be translated. And I mean, it's extraordinary what came out of this. So, because some of this will read one direction, but the exact same letters read the other direction, it will say something completely different. Sometimes it'll say something in complete relation to what was being said forward. So this portion right here, reading down, it literally translates to the firstborn father came. Now, when you read it the other direction, it translates to he came here. So it's like it's literally answering or responding to what's being said forward. So the firstborn father came. Well, he came where? He came here. Now, this inner portion tells us how he got here, in a vehicle. Now, the question is, what does it mean by in a vehicle? Does this mean a metal craft? Or could it possibly mean his body itself is the vehicle? Just like
Garrick,
our body.
Garrick, I don't think I asked you this question, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you remember which book of the Old Testament this is from?
No, I don't. I can look though and get back to you on it, but I don't remember exactly which portion this was decoding from.
Okay, no problem.
So the next portion is reading from the bottom up, but there's 3 letters that are in front of it. And it also includes...
I can read it because it's in Hebrew. The first one is a Daled at the bottom. The next one is a Nun. The next one is an A. It literally spells out DNA.
DNA, correct. So literally we get DNA in a vehicle. So again, that's where I question, okay, so did he bring DNA in a vehicle, like a little, or literally a metal craft of some sort, or is his DNA, or he the DNA in the vehicle? So he could be the DNA in a metal craft, or it could just literally be talking about his body itself and the DNA within it. It could be looked at many different ways here. Now, this portion down here translates to the DNA fragment. Now, this next thing was so bizarre to me when this happened, when I was going through and trying to translate this using Google Translate and this other website that I use called Do It in Hebrew, got the same results. But it's the exact same portion, reading in the exact same direction. But can you tell me what the difference is between this portion and this portion?
There's
It's right here.
a space between two letters between the Dalet and the Nun.
Yes. So literally adding a space between those two letters, excuse me, changes the translation from the DNA fragment to the Hebrew Bible. Literally just adding a space. That's it. Now, as we move forward, this portion over here, reading down, it says he is a foreigner, which means he came from someplace else. And this portion down here, excuse me, I got to take a drink of water. Okay, so this portion down here says, and we are not. So literally, basically stating we were made, born, created, whatever, here, but the firstborn father was not. He is a foreigner. He came from somewhere else. Now, this portion over here, reading downwards, it says, in the light of light. Now, it doesn't seem to make much sense, but it will here in a moment. The next portion will say, we saw that there were two. Okay? So in the light of light, we saw that there were two. Well, who were the two? The first one reads this direction. And it's literally
Yod Hey Vav Hey, Jehovah, Yahweh.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, literally extending off of his name, reading downwards, we get the phrase, his name was with his people. Okay? So Yahweh, his name was with his people. Now, who is the second one? Well, their name is right here, reading the same direction.
Let me see here. Asherah.
Exactly. Now, who was Asherah, however you want to say it? Who was this person? We get literally mother in the day. Okay, she was mother in the day. And even more interesting is what's right next to it. In Israel. Okay, so Asherah, mother in the day in Israel. Now, way back over here, reading downwards, we get this phrase that says, pay attention to the meaning. It's literally giving us an instruction here. Pay attention to the meaning. Because after all, you have been identified in the Bible. Now, when I was reading that, I didn't take it as though it was talking about me personally. I looked at that as referring to every single one of us, because that's one of the things that they talk about with the Bible code is every single person on the planet is encoded in the Bible code. Living or dead, they are encoded in the Bible. Now, when I was talking to my brother about this, I said, how is it that I found all of this that Michael Drosnin did not find? I was like, it's literally like I'm being guided to find this. Well, this portion right up here literally says, I will guide you. When I saw that, I thought, okay, this like I mean, I get chills sometimes when I come across this stuff, and it's spooky how it's doing what it does.
Quick question.
Sure.
This text you said it's 17 by 18 wrap. Is the original text in that same 17 by 18 format?
Yes. If you were to take this text and literally read it from left to right, it would be lifted straight up out of the Bible. Nothing has been removed. So it's literally taking this 17 by 18 block out of the Bible, and all this
left to
code
right,
is being read
left.
vertically. Do what?
You mean left to right or right to left?
Or right to left. Sorry. I always say left to right, but yeah, it's right to left. If you were to read it right to left, it would read just like the Bible, the Hebrew Bible. So literally no portion of the Hebrew Bible has been altered in any way. This is just a small block that has been lifted directly out of there, and all of this text, all this message is coming through vertically or diagonal. As you can see, I have nothing going horizontal, because if I did, to me, there's nothing significant about it, because it's literally a portion of the Bible. It's literally there. We know it's there.
Can you read it from top from now what we have? Can you read it just so that we can hear it in its full?
Sure. Well, let me finish. There's one portion down here at the very bottom.
Okay.
That showed up. And it was this. It was almost like a signature. This portion right next to all of this, when I put it into Google Translate, literally translated to 11.11. And I can't explain it. I don't know why. So it's like just this, like I said, it's like a signature added to this message. So this entire thing, reading straight through, it says the firstborn father came. He came here in a vehicle. Then it says DNA in a vehicle, the DNA fragment, the Hebrew Bible. He is a foreigner, and we are not. In the light of light, we saw that there were two: Yahweh, his name was with his people, and Asherah, mother in the day in Israel. Pay attention to the meaning. After all, you have been identified in the Bible. I will guide you. And then 11:11. Now, some interesting things about this particular matrix. Go to this next slide here. Whoops. Jump out of this. I'll just go to this next frame. Now, I just found this because I had no idea who Asherah was. So I went to the internet, typed it in, found this article where it talks about God had a wife, Asherah, whom the Book of Kings suggests was worshipped alongside Yahweh in his temple in Israel. Now, that right there alone is interesting, that the code literally said she was mother in the day in Israel. And an Oxford scholar named Raphael, how did you pronounce his name, Micah, last time?
Let me see. Oh,
P-A-T-A. Patai. He was the first historian to mention that the ancient Israelites worshipped both Yahweh and Asherah. Now, the odds of this appearing in the Bible is 1, and this number is astronomical. It's huge. So the odds are 1 in 4.0518357578028 times 10 to the 92nd power. In other words, it should be impossible. Beyond impossible. But it's clearly there. Now, every search term presented has an ELS equidistant letter skip of 454, with the exception of 2 words, Yahweh and Asherah. 452 for Yahweh and 906 for Asherah. Now, looking at the gematria values of 452, 454, and 906, 452, these phrases have the same value of 452, becomes the Lord, the perfected man, God-coded person, older than time, the God particle. 454 gives us the Alpha and the Omega, the chosen one, Lord of Lords, solar blast. The Lord is come. Calculate a Bible code. It's exactly what I did. And then 906, that's the value of the skip for Asherah. We get the beautiful goddess and the phrase, pay attention. Pay attention literally has the value of 906. And we saw in that Bible code matrix where it told us to literally pay attention. Now, what's interesting is when you take 452 and 454 and add those together, you get 906, the same value that we get for the beautiful goddess and pay attention. And then when you take 906 and add it to 906, you get 1812. And that number gives us these phrases: discovery of information. It's exactly what we're finding. Trust the universe. I keep finding these phrases talking about the universe all the time, and think back to what I said about the email that I received from Bob, where it said a note from the universe. The phrase 11, a heaven dimension, has the same value as 1812. Are there infinite simulations of reality? And lastly, God warned you, decode.
Now it's interesting. It's interesting when you see 11 is a heaven dimension, 11 a heaven dimension. It's interesting when you say that because modern day string theory, the math works that string theory is correct because it has to include 11 dimensions, 11 being the most high. So the fact that that shows that is quite outstanding.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, this is something interesting too. As I mentioned earlier, I said that you know, everyone is encoded in the Bible. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see if I was encoded in the Bible. And sure enough, I found my first and last name, and it seems to reveal that I would discover this code. So we have Garrick here in red. My last name, King, is coming down diagonally right here. The word chosen is coming diagonally right here. The word reveals is, let's see, I think it's right here. There's two purple, and I should have used different colors. But then the numbers 333 are here, 1111 down here, and the word code. So literally it says Garrick King chosen reveals 333 1111 code. Now, one thing I want to point out is I found two separate phrases that equal the number 1111. The first one was, in God, Garrick King is the chosen mathematician. That phrase will literally equal 1111. And what was the other one? Garrick King decodes the God matrix. Will also have the value of 1111.
What part of the Bible is this?
You know, I'll have to open up the actual code.
Okay, while you're doing that, how did you, in order to find your name here, how did you, what was your process of finding? Was it by random, or how did you find this particular text that revealed this?
I'll just literally go to like a Hebrew translator and just type in what I'm looking for in English, let it translate it to Hebrew, and then I search for those phrases.
And Eso, I can read and understand Hebrew. I can confirm that this is right. Like, for example, That all the way at the top, that diagonal one, that letter is a kuf. That's a K. Then that's a yud. That's a Y or an I. Then the next one is a nun. That's an N. And then that's a gimel at the bottom of the four. That's a G. So it literally spells king. This actually translates. I've been watching this. This is part of the thing that makes it so fascinating. Whereas Garrick might not understand and read Hebrew, but I've been confirming this along the way. I've been reading this. And that's why I've been calling it out to your audience as I've been seeing it, that these absolutely do line up accordingly.
Now, this is interesting here, and this is where it kind of ties back into this whole 37 number. So this phrase that you're looking at right here, it's the very beginning of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And
so the right to the left, it reads, the first word is Bereshit, bara, Elohim. The third word is Elohim. Et hashamayim ve'et ha'ar. It's in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If that's what happens when you read it right to left. So this is accurate as well.
So the smaller numbers that you see above each letter is the value for that letter. The larger number is the value of the entire word. So we know that this entire phrase equals 2701, which is the equivalent of 37 times 73. So we're looking at that number 37 and 37 backwards. It's a palindrome. And keep in mind, the numbers are going up and down in the 1111 matrix code by the number 37. Now, another interesting thing about 2701 is when you add its mirror opposite, which would be 1072, you have 3773. Now, this is literally, there's a message in this first word alone. It's telling us something entirely different in this first word. If we break this down, the first three letters is the word created. We know this because we can see it right next to the word. It's over here. It's made up of the first three letters. They're exactly the same. It's created. The last three letters make up a word that means set in place or make stationary. Then if we take the first three letters again, have an alternate meaning, which means to cut down. And then let's see, if we take the first two and the last two, it makes up a word which means covenant. So we have these two and these two. We're left with two in the middle, with the two letters in the middle make up a word that means fire. Then if we take everything but the first letter, it makes up a word which means head or the first fruit. And then we have, if we take the first letter and the last two, it makes up a word which means house. And then simply the first two letters. Sorry?
No, it says bait. It's a bet and a yud and a hey. A tough. It's bait. It means house. Bet. Bet means house.
Okay. Okay. And then the first two letters just by themselves make up the word son. S-O-N. So literally in this very first word, it's telling us that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He set them in place. He means to cut them down using a covenant of fire. Who would that covenant of fire be? The head of his house, who would be his son. Now, this is where it keeps tying back into the solar flare event that I'm talking about. When we see things like this, fire, sun, it's not talking about a literal man. It's talking about the sun in the sky. Now, there's this middle word here in this sentence that I have highlighted in red. I've had people tell me that it has no literal translation. I've had other people tell me that it simply means the word the, which to me doesn't make sense, because if it was the, this sentence would read, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But if you look at these two letters, we have Aleph and Tav. It's the first letter of the alphabet and the last letter of the alphabet.
The beginning and the end.
The beginning and the end. But also seems to suggest that it encompasses everything in between. And I think it has an even further message, which is telling us that in the beginning, God created what first? Not the heavens and the earth. He created the alphabet, the code that makes up everything that we're looking at right here. And it is believed that Hebrew is the DNA of creation, the language itself. The Hebrew language, the alphabet, is the DNA of creation.
Yes, and Eso, I wanted to let you know is that when you start getting into deep Kabbalah, one of the things you'll learn is that the Bible was never supposed to be separated into pages. That's just how humanity has to do it, because it's so long in order to read it. But in Kabbalah, they'll teach you that the most proper way to understand the Torah is, this is the first sentence of the Torah. No skips, no lines. It's just one long strand of letters from the beginning all the way until the last book. It's one long strand like this. Only even this is cut off. But this is how you're supposed to read it, as one long strand of letters.
Yep.
Which kind of looks like a DNA code if you think about it.
True.
You've ever seen the ATCG codons, right?
Yeah.
That make up DNA? Yeah, it's a code.
Well, and earlier when it said the string is missing, like literally it's these two columns. That's where my mind went. These strings of letters are missing 1111. That's what gave me that idea that I'm to read from right to left and bounce these numbers back and forth. And of course, all that information came through. Now, jumping over to this one really quickly, this is going back to the 2058. This is another matrix that I found. This one was found literally within 11 rows and 11 columns, all found in the book of Ezekiel. And it literally says, let me kind of zoom this out a little bit, to be transcribed, so that's the word here in red, will emerge from, that's in green, Jesus Christ, that's in blue, of Jehovah, that's this pink word going here, the word fire, it's right here, and the year 2058. So literally this would read, to be transcribed, fire of Jehovah in 2058 will emerge from Jesus Christ. If you think of Jesus Christ not being a son, S-O-N, but S-U-N, it seems to be referring back to a solar flare event.
Yeah.
Now, again,
you ever see pictures of Ezekiel? The book of Ezekiel starts that when he turned 30, he saw God. And I've made significant explanations of what 30 is to the ancient Jews. It was your Saturn return. That's why Jesus starts the ministry at 30. It's why David starts at 30. King David starts ruling at 30. There's so many 30s in the Bible. I'm not going to go into all of it. But one of the things you do see is that picture of Ezekiel looking at the sun with God in the sun. That's his vision from God. And they put God in the sun because they knew God was the sun.
Well, and like you talk about in all of your work, the halo, the circle behind his head in every single art image that we see is the sun.
Yeah.
Now, again, this matrix, this very small matrix, was found in 11 rows and 11 columns. So again, here's a connection to 1111. The odds of this appearing in the Bible, the chances were 1 in 1,955,005.514. Again, it's an astronomical number. It's huge. Should not exist, but it's there. It's literally there. Anyone can purchase this software. This isn't something that's only available to me. It's available to everybody. Everybody can go and find this.
What's the software called?
This particular one that I found this in is called Code Finder, Millennium Edition. But they are structured and set up the exact same way. So whether you're using Keys of the Bible, Code Finder, doesn't matter. It'll all be laid out the same way.
Garrick, was I the one who gave you the idea to pick up this software?
Yep, you certainly were. Absolutely.
And look at what came out of it.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
So this couldn't work the other way round in terms of looking at a random piece of text in the Torah and then trying to work out the codes? Or does it go the other way around, working out what you're trying to find and using the software to help you locate that?
Well, the way that the software is meant to be used is you are meant to type in phrases and then do a search for that phrase. So you type it in, it'll generate its search and then give you the results. And you'll put in a master word, and then you'll put in what I call slave words. So you could put in Twin Towers as your master word and then start adding plane, fire, whatever. And if it starts to find those all together within a small frame, if you found like Twin Towers in one portion and then, 152 pages later, you found plane, that wouldn't be that significant. You're looking for these phrases that are close knit to one another.
It's the same thing with my work, Garrick. It's 100% the same thing, because like when I decode with astrology, they'll talk about the sheep and the rams and the donkeys and the camels, right? Those are always put together right next to each other. It's not like they'll be talking about wheat, which is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. And then like 2 pages later, they'll say like judgment for Libra, the judge. And I'll be like, oh, a pattern. I ignore those. I look for the ones that are close knit, that are within the same parables even.
Right. Do you guys want a sneak preview of what's being said in the inner portion of this code that I found?
Yes, please.
I haven't even revealed this on my channel, so you guys are seeing this. You're the first to see it. Okay. This is the message that's come through so far. The last one is what I'm having trouble translating. We'll get to this in a minute. I'm going to read this straight through. But it says, to the devil of the seas, the spirit of the Lord dwells. The eagle, the hawk. Yes, he is the father of the mighty man. For his return, he will live like a rabbi. So he will be placed in the midst of Israel, under a species that is more intense and oppressive. He will bring a beautiful God only to the people of the world. If Eden is angry that he has agreed with the people of the world, he will raise the level of the Quran. It will be difficult for man. The light was extinguished by fire, and the earth was destroyed. Jesus will come. You will be destroyed by fire, and day by day it should be noted that most of the high-rise buildings will be destroyed. Please forgive me, my father. When I came to Israel, I was afraid that I was going to leave the house. No, if you don't fear, you will be strong, and you will not be afraid of God. This is the name of the book, and it is written in the name of the author. Now, the last portion, currently at the moment, it says, when he spat on Yahweh, he came to him. I don't think that's the actual translation of this.
What did you use to get was this an equidistant pattern within a certain a frame of reference?
This is the inner portion of the code that I was showing you, where everything lined up.
Oh, wow.
So this is from changing the width to 370, where everything lined up. The first time it lines up. So this is what I call the inner message. The message that I gave you earlier was the surface text message. That was the one where I was just going through and finding all the letters based off of that split from the 1111 matrix code numbers. Now, as I was going through, got to 370, that's when I noticed all the letters lining up. And again, did the same process of taking each letter from right to left, putting them in, and we get this translation. Now, what's interesting is I have been putting these letters in and not rearranging, like swapping, but playing with the spaces between the letters. At several points, it has literally translated the name Moses in two different ways. The first one was Moshe.
Moshe, that's his name, yeah.
Yep. And then the second time it did it, it literally just said Moses, Moses, which I find interesting when it says this is the name of the book and it is written in the name of the author. And then it said Moses when we're told that God basically recited all of this to Moses when it was being written down for the first time.
Yeah, for people who don't know very well, Moses is given credit to write the first 5 books of the Torah, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. He's given credit to have written all of them.
And this text also mentions the Quran, which I found quite halfway down.
I was completely, I mean, and again, we have to point out here, the fact that it's saying anything at all is shocking. But what it's saying is even shocking, even more so. And now this is just the first inner message. There's going to be another message coming through when I start decoding the 740 portion, where the width is changed to 740 and all of the letters line up again in straight rows, but in entirely different order. So we're going to get another message coming up. I just haven't gotten to that portion yet. It's taken me a crap ton of time just to go through this one here.
So in terms of how this was originally written, what are we to make of the way that, in terms of the composition of the text, what's the underlying reason behind it?
Well, it's a living book. When they say that the word is living, it's true. It's a living book. It reveals more and more as time goes on. Garrick's work is just as deep, if not deeper, than my work with all the astrology. I wanted to introduce you to Garrick, Eso, because I wanted people to see that it's not just an astrology book. Because when people first discover astrotheology, because I'm so out there in the public with it, they usually think that that's it. And they're so blown away by it that they can't fathom that there's something equally as deep that can break it down as well too. But I've never found anyone like Garrick so far that can find things like this. My goal is to find a team of the 10 holy science experts and to be able to platform all of them, and so that we can get excuse me, a complete understanding of what the Bible actually is. If that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah. Yep. But I'd be interested to see how it overlaps without looking at the 10, just simply looking at what Garrick has done. and overlapping that with your analysis and astrotheology to see where the overlap, what the overlap identifies?
Well, I'm constantly asking Garrick to look at numerical patterns or things that I find in the Bible. We are looking for that. This is like physics. You have the four forces, right? And there should be a unifying thing that attaches them all together. The universe should be able to be written with a simple equation, and we're just right now trying to find the way that they all connect.
You know, I literally had a dream last night. A very odd dream, but in it, the entire Bible in Hebrew was presented to me in a cube. And in my dream, I was able to, just like a Rubik's Cube, rotate portions around. And I don't remember anything that was said, but I could read everything no matter how I rotated the portions around. It all made sense. And each time I turned, you know, a portion of it, it revealed more and more information.
Yeah.
It was such a bizarre dream, but but you know, we even talked about that, Mike, about it being a 3D holographic.
Yeah. We're
symbol.
talking about Primer, right? Do you remember the movie?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yes.
Do you remember how that old man found the primer and they had these maps, and what they had to do was they had to fold them up and they made a ship? It's the same thing. There's inflection points in the Bible that when you fold over one another in a holographic way, they tell multiple layered stories. That's the next step.
But what Garrick presented to me reminds me more of the film Knowing with Nicolas Cage.
I've brought that up in one of my videos.
Yes.
And there's a lot of 11/11 connections with that movie Knowing as well.
Wow. Well, Garrick, thank you for joining us today on Esoteric Thoughts. When you've decoded the 740, is it 740?
740, that'll be the next inner message.
When you've done that, we'd love to have you back on with Micah to discuss that in more detail. I think it's going to take a while for some of the audience to digest what you've presented, and I look forward to the comments from everybody on this.
Everyone that sees my work says it's mind-blowing. I think this is funny, but the phrase mind-blowing has a value of 1111.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the funny thing is about this, Garrick, is that you came into this kicking and screaming. You were just trying to understand why you saw the numbers everywhere. It's not like you studied numerology your whole life.
Never. I mean, I literally had no interest in basically any of this, really. It's just like you said, just trying to figure out why I was seeing those numbers. That was what was most important to me, is what does this mean? And then all of this just unfolded from there.
So I just want to make it abundantly clear to your audience, Esso, that there's 8 other sciences that are equally as deep and encoded in the Bible as Garrick's Gematria and numerology and my astrology. There's 8 other sciences. So as I find these experts, as I go on my journey, I'll bring them on so that we can put a compendium together. But it is that deep. It is that mind-blowing. And it is a living book. It really is.
Yeah. Well, Garrick King, Micah Dank, thank you for joining us today on Esoteric Thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.